Life has a way of presenting us with challenges, some small, others towering. But here's the defining question. When you're faced with a problem, do you fixate on what's wrong, or do you begin to seek what can be done about it? It's easy to dwell on the difficulty. It's easy to complain, blame, or get overwhelmed. But none of those reactions change the reality. What changes things is a shift in perspective, from spotlighting the problem to spotlighting the solution. Problems are everywhere, but so are solutions if you train your eyes to see them. The real winners in life are not those who never encounter problems, but those who develop the habit of moving through them with a clear, solution-driven mindset. Don't camp out at the site of the problem. Set up shop where ideas flow, where strategies take shape, where effort replaces anxiety. The person who trains themselves to think in terms of possibilities will always find doors in places where others only see walls. When a problem comes, instead of saying, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What can I do about this?" That single shift opens the gates of creativity, resilience, and progress. Problems are often invitations to rise. They reveal how much strength, clarity, and ingenuity you've been building quietly all along. And here's something to remember. You don't have to have all the answers immediately. Just begin. Solutions often show up once motion starts. The stagnant mind stays stuck. The moving mind stirs ideas, and ideas become answers. You see, most people major in what's wrong. They hold committee meetings in their head all day about what's broken. But there's no reward in chronic problem analysis. The reward goes to those who roll up their sleeves and ask, "What's one step I can take to move forward?" When you focus on solutions, your attitude changes. You become resourceful, proactive, hopeful. You attract ideas, people, and energy that multiply your momentum. And before long, the problem that once looked like a mountain becomes a stepping stone under your feet. The world needs fewer complainers and more creators, fewer worriers and more workers, fewer folks frozen by fear and more fueled by vision. You have that within you. So the next time something tough comes your way, and it will, choose not to stare at the obstacle. Choose to start building a way through it, over it, or around it. Where your attention goes, your energy follows. That's not just a catchy phrase. It's a principle that shapes everything. If your mind is constantly wrapped around what's wrong, what's broken, what's missing, then all your mental fuel is being spent on maintaining the problem. And the more you feed the problem with attention, the bigger it seems to get. But the moment you shift your focus, even slightly, from the problem to the possibility of a solution, things start to move. Energy starts to flow in the right direction. Ideas begin to form. Options begin to show up. You don't need to have everything figured out. You just need to put your mind on the path of answers rather than on the trap of complaints. Focusing on solutions changes your emotional state. It takes you from frustration to determination, from hopelessness to curiosity. You stop spinning your wheels and start building traction. This doesn't mean you ignore the problem. It means you stop letting the problem dominate your thinking. You acknowledge it, assess it, and then direct your effort toward changing it. People who make progress in life aren't those who have no problems. They're the ones who learn where to aim their attention. They've trained themselves to ask, "What can I do? What's within my control? What's the next small move I can make?" And once they ask those questions, they act on the answers. Your mind is a spotlight. Wherever you shine it, that's what becomes brighter. If you keep shining it on the mess, you'll only see more mess. But if you start shining it on the path forward, even if it's narrow, you'll begin to light up the way. So don't let your energy get stuck in worry. Aim it toward action. Let your thoughts fuel change, not feed panic. Choose to place your focus on the solution side of life, and you'll discover that progress isn't just possible, it's inevitable. It's easy to make the obstacle bigger than it really is. That's what the average person does. A challenge shows up. Maybe it's a financial setback, a relationship issue, or a health scare, and immediately it becomes the center of their world. They talk about it, worry about it, and give it all their time and energy. The problem grows, not necessarily in reality, but in their mind. And the more they feed it with attention, the more it feels like a mountain that can't be moved. But here's the truth. Most obstacles are not as big as they appear. It's our reaction that gives them power. The problem isn't just the problem, it's how we choose to respond. And that's where the power lies. You can't always control what happens to you, but you can absolutely control how you respond to it. That's your leverage. That's your turning point. When you magnify the obstacle, you shrink your ability to respond. But when you magnify your response, when you focus on what you can do, you start taking that power back. You become bigger than the problem. You shift from being a victim of your circumstances to the architect of your outcome. Some people spend more time describing the obstacle than designing a response to it. They want to analyze it, debate it, even decorate it with emotion. But all of that doesn't move you forward. You don't need to inflate the problem. You need to strengthen your reaction. So how do you magnify your response? Start with your mindset. Ask better questions. Instead of why is this happening to me, ask what is this trying to teach me? Instead of how will I ever get through this, ask what's one step I can take right now. The quality of your questions determines the quality of your direction. Questions direct your focus, and focus creates momentum. Next, magnify your sense of responsibility, not blame, responsibility. Blame keeps you stuck, waiting for someone else to fix it. Responsibility says, this may not be my fault, but it is my opportunity to grow. That's when you begin to change the game. That's when growth becomes possible, even in the middle of hardship. Then magnify your daily action. Don't just think about what needs to change, do something about it. Even a small step forward is a declaration that the obstacle won't win. Maybe it's a phone call, a journal entry, a workout, a hard conversation, or a decision to forgive. Whatever it is, it breaks the spell of paralysis. It puts you back in motion. Also, magnify your resilience. You've been through things before, haven't you? You've overcome more than you probably give yourself credit for. Think about that. You're still here. You've learned, adapted, survived. That same strength is still inside you. Don't act like this obstacle is the end. It's just the next chapter, and you have the pen. And finally, magnify your vision. Keep your eyes on what's beyond the obstacle. See where you want to go, not just where you're stuck. When you focus on your future, your present problems lose some of their grip. They don't disappear, but they stop controlling you. That vision pulls you forward and fuels your resolve. Remember this, the obstacle is a moment, not a monument. Don't let it become your identity. Don't build your life around it. Problems come to everyone. It's part of the deal. But progress belongs to those who decide to respond with strength, wisdom, and intention. So stop giving the obstacle center stage. Start building up your response. That's where breakthroughs happen. That's where growth begins. And that's how you turn setbacks into setups for something greater than you imagined. Problems are not stop signs. They're signals. Signals that something needs attention, something needs to shift, something needs to grow. But too often, people treat problems like brick walls. They come up against one, and instead of finding another route, they stop, they park, they complain, they turn around. All because the road got rough. But life never promised a smooth path. What it offers is the opportunity to become someone who doesn't fold when things get tough, but adapts, adjusts, and finds a better way. See, problems aren't there to destroy you. They're there to develop you. They're not a denial. They're a direction, a redirection. When a problem arises, it's life saying, pay attention. There's something here you need to learn or change or let go of. Think about how nature works. When the wind shifts, birds adjust their flight path. When the current changes, fish swim differently. When the seasons turn, trees drop their leaves to survive. Everything in nature adapts, and those who adapt survive. More than that, they thrive. Now look at life. The marketplace shifts. A job is lost, a relationship changes, an unexpected expense shows up. That's life doing what it does. Question is, do you see that moment as the end, or do you see it as an adjustment point? Some people resist every problem like it's a personal attack. But problems aren't enemies, they're instructors. They teach flexibility, they teach humility, they teach resilience. And if you're listening, they also teach creativity. The problem is not the end of the road unless you refuse to turn the wheel. When you hit a detour in life, it's not a dead end. It's a chance to reroute. But rerouting takes wisdom. It takes calm thinking. And it takes the maturity to say, it's okay, this isn't going as I planned, but what does this moment require of me? Sometimes the shift is internal. Maybe a mindset needs to change. Maybe you've been seeing things a certain way for years, and now that way of thinking has hit a wall. Good. That's the moment you get to grow. Sometimes the shift is in your priorities. You've been focused on things that don't really matter, and now the problem is revealing what truly does. Other times the shift is in your habits. You've been coasting, cutting corners, or staying too comfortable. The problem forces you to level up, to take your discipline, your learning, your effort to the next gear. And occasionally the problem is simply pushing you into a new chapter. Maybe something you relied on isn't meant to carry you any further. Maybe you were too rooted in routine. And now you're being invited to discover a different path, a higher one. But none of that is possible if you treat problems like stop signs, if you freeze, retreat, or collapse. Instead, train yourself to ask, what's the shift here? What adjustment is this moment asking from me? That question changes everything. Adaptability is one of the greatest skills you can develop in life. It's the difference between a person who gets left behind and a person who finds a way forward. And the good news? It's a skill you can build. Every time you respond with flexibility instead of frustration, you grow. Every time you shift with the challenge instead of shutting down, you strengthen a muscle that will serve you for the rest of your life. There's a quote that says, "Blessed are the flexible, for they shall not be broken." That's true. Rigidity breaks under pressure. But those who can shift, pivot, and think clearly under stress, they rise. So the next time a problem shows up, and it will, don't panic. Don't quit. And don't make it bigger than it is. See it for what it is, a signal, a nudge, an opportunity. Something needs to change. Something needs to evolve. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. Problems are not barriers to your success. They're bridges to your better self. If you pay attention, if you stay open, and if you adapt with wisdom, you won't just get through the problem, you'll grow through it. The longer you dwell on what's wrong, the more you delay what could be right. That's not just a clever line, it's a reality that plays out in countless lives every single day. People get stuck, not because they don't have potential, not because they don't have opportunities, but because they keep rehearsing the problem instead of reaching for the solution. We've all been there. Something goes wrong. A plan falls apart. Someone disappoints you. Life takes a turn you didn't expect. And what do most people do? They sit with the problem. They talk about it, think about it, lose sleep over it, replay it over and over again in their minds. But here's the truth. No problem has ever been solved by just staring at it. Now, there's nothing wrong with feeling the weight of a setback. That's human. But there's a big difference between processing and parking. Feel it? Sure. Acknowledge it? Absolutely. But living in it? That's a choice. And the longer you live in what's wrong, the more time you lose building what could be right. Here's what happens when you dwell. Your energy gets drained. Your creativity dries up. Your confidence shrinks. You start to believe that the problem is permanent, that it defines you. You become emotionally attached to it, and it becomes harder to imagine life beyond it. That's the real danger. It's not the problem itself. It's the paralysis that comes from staying in it too long. What you focus on expands. If you constantly focus on what went wrong, you magnify its power. But if you shift your attention toward what you can do next, you begin to reduce the problem's grip on your mind. You start moving. You stop replaying and start rebuilding. Progress doesn't start with perfect conditions. It starts with a decision. I'm done sitting in this. I'm ready to rise out of it. That decision doesn't erase the problem, but it positions you for something better. You can't drive forward while staring in the rearview mirror. Reflection is useful, but direction is what moves you. Some people confuse reflection with dwelling. They think they're being responsible by overanalyzing every mistake. But true responsibility says, Sen, I've learned what I needed to learn. Now I need to move. There's a time to examine the wound, but there's also a time to let it heal and get back to work. Dwell too long and bitterness starts to grow. Regret starts to multiply. You begin to tell yourself stories that sound like, it's too late, or it'll never recover, or this always happens to me. But those stories are just fear dressed up in logic, and they rob you of the energy you need to build a new story. So, how do you stop dwelling? Start by asking better questions. Instead of, why did this happen to me? Ask, what can I do with this now? Instead of, what did I lose? Ask, what's still in my hand? Questions shape your mindset, and your mindset shapes your momentum. Next, take small action. Not big, not dramatic, just small. Make a call, clean a space, write a goal, help someone else. Motion disrupts rumination. When you move even slightly, your brain starts to shift gears. You go from being stuck to being in motion, and that's where strength returns. Also, surround yourself with forward thinkers. If you hang around people who dwell, you'll be tempted to stay where they are. But when you spend time with people who are building, moving, growing, it lifts your spirit. It pulls you out of the mud and reminds you that there's more ahead. And finally, give yourself some grace. You're not supposed to have it all figured out. You're supposed to keep showing up. Life doesn't reward perfection. It rewards persistence. And every time you choose to stop dwelling and start doing, you take a step towards something better. So remember, you can either stay stuck in what went wrong, or you can build what comes next. One leads to delay, the other leads to destiny. The choice is always yours. If you want a better life, start by asking better questions. That's where real change begins, not in your circumstances, not in your paycheck, not in someone else's approval, but in the quality of the questions you ask yourself every single day. Because questions are like keys. Some just rattle in the lock, but the right ones, they open doors. The average person goes through life asking the wrong kind of questions. Questions like, why does this always happen to me? Or what if I fail? Or what's wrong with me? And let me tell you, those kinds of questions lead you in the wrong direction. They don't create solutions, they create doubt. They don't lift you, they trap you. They cause you to circle the same mental block over and over until you've built a prison with no walls. The truth is, your mind is always working, always trying to answer whatever question you throw at it. If you ask, why am I such a mess? Your brain will come up with a list of reasons. It's doing its job. But if you ask, what can I do today to move forward? Suddenly, your mind gets to work on a new task. It starts looking for direction instead of excuses. It becomes a tool for growth instead of a megaphone for insecurity. Ask a better question, and you'll get a better answer. Ask a question that leads you to responsibility, not resentment. Ask a question that empowers action, not self-pity. Because the questions you live with determine the direction of your thinking, and your thinking determines the direction of your life. Let's say you hit a setback in business or your personal life. Most people respond with questions like, why is this so hard? Or who's to blame? That kind of thinking will wear you out and waste your time. But if you can stop and ask, what is this trying to teach me? Or what's my next best step from here? Now you're growing. You're no longer stuck. You're moving with purpose, even in the middle of the problem. Better questions shift your focus from the uncontrollable to the controllable. You stop spinning your wheels over things you can't change, and you start taking ownership of the things you can. That's how you reclaim your power. That's how you make progress. It also changes how you deal with people. Instead of asking, so why can't they see things my way? You start asking, how can I communicate more clearly? Or what do they need that I'm not understanding yet? That kind of thinking builds bridges instead of burning them. It's not about giving in, it's about growing up. And the beautiful part, you can practice this every day. You don't need a seminar or a degree, just a little awareness and intention. Wake up in the morning and ask, what can I do today to get better, physically, financially, spiritually? End your day by asking, what did I learn? What can I improve tomorrow? Make questions your compass, not your chains. Here's another powerful one. Who do I need to become to reach the life I want? That question alone can change everything. It pulls your attention off of luck, timing, and other people and puts it back on your own development. It says, if I want better, I must become better. That's a question that wakes you up. That's a question that leads to growth. And let me tell you this, every successful person you admire has learned to ask better questions. That's no accident. They didn't just stumble into achievement. They trained their thinking. They didn't let life shove them around. They guided themselves through it by thinking clearly, asking wisely, and acting intentionally. So if things aren't going the way you hope, don't panic. Don't pout. Don't point fingers. Pause, reflect, and ask a better question. Not why me, but what now? Not what if I fail, but what can I learn if I try? Not when will things change, but what can I change today? You'll be amazed how quickly things begin to shift when you shift the questions you're living by. Because better questions don't just lead to better answers, they lead to a better life.